The fog sits heavy over Bel Air this morning, thick and still. Below it, somewhere in that white silence, are gates, iron gates, 20 feet tall. They open slowly, without sound, controlled by systems you'll never see. Beyond them, driveways curve upward through sculpted landscapes towards structures that don't announce themselves. They don't need to. Some of these homes cost more than private jets, more than entire towns in the Midwest, more than the GDP of small island nations. The price tags aren't just numbers, they're declarations, statements written in marble and bulletproof glass and temperature-controlled wine cellars that descend 3 stories into bedrock. These are not houses. These are not houses. They are monuments. Monuments to a specific kind of power that exists nowhere else on Earth, the power that comes from controlling what the world watches, what it believes, what it remembers. Behind every one of these properties operates an invisible infrastructure, private security firms that don't advertise, staff bound by NDAs that extend years beyond termination, underground tunnels connecting panic rooms to escape vehicles, climate control systems more sophisticated than most hospitals. These homes don't just shelter their owners, they protect them from sight, from reach, from accountability. Tonight, we're going inside Hollywood's most expensive mansions, not to admire them, not to envy them, but to understand what they reveal about power, about the machinery of modern American wealth, about what happens when fame stops being about recognition and becomes about accumulation, when creativity becomes commodity, when artists become empires. This is what $250 million looks like, and this is what it means. Hollywood didn't always create this kind of wealth. In the studio era, even the biggest stars were employees. They signed 7-year contracts. They earned salaries. Good salaries, yes. Enough to buy nice homes in Beverly Hills or Pacific Palisades, but not enough to build empires. Clark Gable made $5,000 a week at his peak. In today's money, that's about $1 million a year. Comfortable, secure, but not transformative. The studios owned everything. They owned the films, they owned the distribution, they owned the theaters. The stars got paid to show up and perform. That was the deal. Then something shifted. The studio system collapsed, power fragmented, and a new model emerged. Back-end percentage deals. Instead of a salary, you took a percentage of the profits. If the film succeeded, you didn't just get paid well, you got paid exponentially. Steven Spielberg understood this early. He took back-end points on Jaws, on E.T., on Jurassic Park. Each film generated tens of millions in personal profit, not salary, profit. Money that multiplied, money that compounded, money that could be invested into production companies, real estate portfolios, art collections. Spielberg wasn't just making films, he was building an economic infrastructure. Tom Cruise pioneered the mega deal, $20 million salaries plus back-end, first dollar gross, meaning his percentage kicked in before the studio recouped costs. One film could generate $50 to $70 million. That's not wealth, that's dynastic capital. But salary isn't where the real fortunes are built. Ownership is. Oprah didn't become a billionaire from hosting a talk show. She became a billionaire by owning the production company that made the show, by owning the content, by controlling distribution. Tyler Perry doesn't just act and direct, he owns his entire studio. He owns his masters. He owns everything. The streaming era changed the equation again. Tech money entered Hollywood. Amazon bought MGM for $8.5 billion. Apple spends $6 billion a year on content. Netflix, $17 billion. These companies don't pay salaries, they pay buyouts, they pay ownership premiums, they pay the kind of money that makes real estate decisions irrelevant. Here's the formula.
Fame creates income, but ownership creates empires. The mansion isn't a house, it's an asset, it's a tax instrument, it's a statement to investors that you're serious, that you're permanent, that you're not an employee anymore, you're an institution. And once you reach that level, the mansion serves another purpose. It becomes a barrier, a moat. 10 acres of property isn't just land, it's distance, it's insulation, it's the physical manifestation of untouchability. You're not just rich, you're removed, and removal, in the end, is the ultimate luxury. Bel Air wasn't always like this. When it was first developed in the 1920s and expanded through the 50s, it was exclusive, yes, but restrained. Homes were large but not grotesque. 5,000 square feet, maybe 8,000 for the truly wealthy. Estates sat on 1 acre, 2 acres. There was space between them, privacy without fortress architecture. Somewhere in the 1990s, that restraint broke. The tech boom flooded Los Angeles with new money, venture capitalists, startup founders, entertainment executives who'd negotiated stock options in addition to salaries, and they all wanted one thing: to announce their arrival, not with words, with walls. The arms race began. One estate expanded to 3 acres, so the next claimed 5. Someone built a 15,000 square foot house. Someone else built 30,000. Driveways lengthened, not for function, for effect. A quarter-mile approach to the front door. Gates got taller, hedges got thicker. Properties started disappearing behind landscaping so dense you couldn't even see the house from the street. By the 2000s, Bel Air wasn't a neighborhood anymore. It was a competition. A wealthy person didn't just want a nice home, they wanted the nicest home, the biggest lot, the longest driveway, the most expensive finishes, the most talked-about sale. These properties weren't built for comfort, they were built for dominance. In 2014, a Bel Air estate sold for $70 million. In 2017, one sold for $100 million. In 2019, $150 million. In 2023, a property listed for $250 million. The price wasn't based on square footage or materials, it was based on precedent, on narrative, on the story that could be told about who owned it, who built it, and who might buy it next. The homes stopped being about living and started being about winning, about having the biggest, the rarest, the most unattainable. You didn't buy a Bel Air mansion to live comfortably, you bought it to prove something, to yourself, to your peers, to anyone paying attention. And the strange part? Many of these homes sit empty. Their owners have 3 other properties. They're traveling, they're working. The mansion isn't a residence, it's a portfolio piece, a line on a balance sheet, a monument to the idea that you could buy something this expensive and not even need to live in it. That's what the Bel Air arms race created, not a neighborhood, not a community, a museum of wealth, a place where money competes with itself, where excess is the baseline, where the question isn't, do you need this, but can you afford this? And the answer, for a very small number of people, is yes. In 2021, a house called The One went into bankruptcy auction. The asking price had been $500 million. It sold for $126 million. Even at that discount, it was one of the most expensive residential sales in American history, and it had never been lived in. The One is 100,000 square feet, 21 bedrooms, 42 bathrooms, 5 swimming pools, a nightclub, a bowling alley, a 50-car garage with 2-car elevators, a running track, a philanthropy wing specifically designed for charity galas. Not a room for charity, a wing. The developer spent over a decade building it. The construction costs ballooned past $400 million. He imported materials from around the world: Italian marble, French limestone, Brazilian hardwood. The master bedroom alone is larger than most American homes, 5,000 square feet, with its own private pool, its own kitchen, its own entrance. But here's what's strange. Walking through the one feels empty, not just because it's unfurnished, but because it was never designed for living. It was designed for showing. Every room is a showroom. Every view is staged. There's no intimacy, no scale that feels human. You don't imagine cooking breakfast in that kitchen. You imagine hosting a product launch. The one represents the endpoint of a certain kind of thinking, the idea that bigger is always better, that more amenities equal more value, that if you just add enough features, enough spectacle, enough excess, you create something worth $500 million. But markets don't work on addition. They work on scarcity, on desire, on meaning. The one failed because it was a monument to nothing. No one lived there. No history resided in those walls. It was a product without a buyer, a statement without an audience, 100,000 square feet of expensive emptiness.
In 2020, Jeff Bezos bought the Warner Estate in Beverly Hills for $165 million, the most expensive residential real estate transaction in Los Angeles history. But unlike the one, this property has something money can't easily buy: history. The estate was built in 1937 for Jack Warner, co-founder of Warner Brothers Studios. It sits on 9 acres. The main house is 13,000 square feet, small by modern mega mansion standards. But it hosted everyone who mattered in Hollywood's golden age: Audrey Hepburn, Cary Grant, James Stewart, presidents, royalty, power. Bezos didn't buy the biggest house, he bought the right house, the one with provenance, the one that says, "I understand value beyond size." When you own Jack Warner's estate, you're not just buying property, you're buying legitimacy. You're buying a connection to Hollywood history. You're saying, "I belong in this lineage." This is the divide in ultra-luxury real estate. New money builds the one. Old money, or money that wants to appear old, buys the Warner Estate. It's the difference between announcing your wealth and assuming everyone already knows, between spectacle and understatement, between excess and taste. The Chartwell Estate sits on 10 acres in Bel Air, 25,000 square feet, built in 1933. For decades, it was owned by Jerry Perenchio, the billionaire television executive who built Univision into a media empire. He died in 2017. The estate went on the market for $350 million. It eventually sold to Lachlan Murdoch for $150 million, still an enormous sum. But here's what Murdoch bought: not just a house, but a filming location. Chartwell was the Clampett Mansion in the Beverly Hillbillies. It's been in dozens of films and television shows. It's iconography. It's embedded in American visual culture. When you own Chartwell, every photo of your home carries that reference, that recognition. You're not just living somewhere expensive, you're living somewhere famous, and fame in Los Angeles is its own currency. But there's something else these 3 case studies reveal. The one was a product, the Warner Estate was a trophy, Chartwell was a statement. Each represents a different relationship to wealth, different values, different insecurities, different needs. And all 3 share one thing: they're too big to truly live in. They're stages, museums, investments, but not homes, not in any recognizable sense of the word. Every mansion requires an army. You don't see them, that's the point, but they're there, keeping everything running, keeping everything perfect, keeping the illusion intact. A 20,000 square foot estate might employ 15 to 25 full-time staff: housekeepers, chefs, gardeners, security, estate managers, technicians who maintain the pool systems, the HVAC, the home automation, the security infrastructure. Each person has a role. Each person is invisible. Security alone is a multi-million-dollar operation, not just guards. Integrated systems, facial recognition at gates, cameras covering every angle,
panic rooms with independent air supplies and satellite communication, escape tunnels, reinforced safe rooms with biometric locks. These homes aren't just protected, they're fortified. Everyone signs NDAs, non-disclosure agreements that extend years beyond employment. You don't talk about who visits, what you see, what you overhear. Violate it, and you're not just fired, you're sued, blacklisted, erased from the industry. Most of the staff never interact with the owners. They come in through separate entrances. They work in shifts designed to avoid contact. They maintain rooms that might only be used twice a year. They prepare meals for people who often aren't home. They're ghosts in someone else's monument. The staff areas are different, functional, bare, fluorescent lights instead of chandeliers, concrete floors instead of marble. It's like moving between two worlds. Above, perfection. Below, infrastructure. Above, the fantasy. Below, the machinery that creates it. And here's the paradox. These homes require enormous effort to maintain, but they're often empty. The owners are traveling, working, staying at their other properties in Malibu, Aspen, New York, London. The mansion sits perfect and unused. The staff maintains a stage with no performance, a museum with no visitors. The invisible army keeps the illusion alive, the illusion that someone actually lives here, that this is a home. But it's not. It's a preserved state, a permanent exhibition, and the staff are the curators.
There's a cost to all of this that doesn't appear on balance sheets. A social cost, a cultural cost, a cost measured in distance. Los Angeles has the largest homeless population in America, over 60,000 people living on the streets. At the same time, it has homes worth hundreds of millions of dollars sitting mostly empty. The gap between those two realities isn't just economic, it's moral. It's about what we've decided to value, what we've decided to permit. The justification is always the same. These people earned it. They created value. They took risks. They deserve the rewards. And there's truth in that. But there's also a question that doesn't get asked often enough. At what point does accumulation stop being about reward and start being about removal? About building walls so high that you never have to see the cost of your comfort? These mansions are barriers. Physical barriers, yes, but also psychological ones. When you live behind 10 acres and a quarter-mile driveway and armed security, you're not just protecting your property, you're insulating yourself from reality, from proximity to people who live differently, from the friction of shared public space, from accountability. There's a painting in one of these homes worth $40 million. It hangs in a hallway. The owner walks past it maybe twice a year. That painting costs more than it would take to house 100 families for a year, to fund a school, to change lives. And it decorates a hallway in a house that's mostly empty. The ultra-wealthy give to charity, they host fundraisers, they cut checks, and those contributions matter. But charity is not the same as justice. You can't donate your way out of a structural problem, especially when the structure itself is built on your insulation, your removal, your ability to never have to confront the gap. The cultural cost is this. We've normalized stratospheric inequality. We've turned it into entertainment. We've made shows about touring celebrity homes. We've made it aspirational. We've stopped asking whether anyone should live like this while others live in tents under freeway overpasses. These mansions are monuments. But monuments to what? To achievement? To creativity? To success? Or to something else? To extraction? To consolidation? To the idea that wealth has no ceiling and need has no bottom, that the people who accumulate the most are simply better at the game, and the game apparently has no rules. We started by asking what these mansions reveal about power, and the answer is uncomfortable. They reveal that power, at this level, is about distance, about insulation, about never having to be reached. Hollywood's most expensive mansions are not homes. They're financial instruments, they're tax strategies, they're brand statements, they're fortresses, they're museums, they're everything except the thing they claim to be. No one lives in a 21-bedroom house. You occupy it, you maintain it, you use it to signal status, but you don't live there. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the mansion is perfect because it's not about living. It's about transcending the need to live like everyone else. It's about achieving escape velocity from normal human concerns. Bills, neighbors, compromise, proximity. The mansion is proof you've left all that behind. But something happens when you build a fortress. You become a prisoner of it. You can't go anywhere without security. You can't interact without NDAs. You can't trust that people see you rather than your net worth. The walls you built to keep the world out also keep you in. The monument becomes a tomb. The saddest thing about these mansions is their emptiness. Not empty of objects, they're full of objects. Empty of people, empty of life. Empty of the mess and friction and compromise that makes something a home instead of a showroom. These properties will outlast their owners. They'll be sold again and again, each time for more money, each time to someone who believes that owning this will mean something, that it will fill something, that it will prove something. But monuments don't prove anything except that you could build them. They don't make you happy. They don't make you safe. They don't make you immortal. They just make you alone, very expensively alone. These are Hollywood's most expensive mansions. They cost more than most people will earn in a lifetime. They represent the absolute peak of residential real estate, the top of the market, the ceiling of accumulation. And they reveal a truth about power that no amount of marble can hide. The higher you build your walls, the smaller your world becomes. The more you insulate yourself from everyone else, the more you lose the thing that makes life meaningful: connection, friction, proximity to people who see you as human instead of monument. In the end, these mansions are exactly what they appear to be, not homes, monuments. And like all monuments, they're beautiful, impressive, and utterly uninhabited. They're built to be seen, not lived in, admired, not loved, acquired, not cherished. The average American home is 2,000 square feet. The one is 100,000 square feet. It's sold at a 75% loss. It remains empty.